Good evening. I'm Alan John Edoria, here to discuss the comparison between Philippine restorative system and the Japanese restorative system. At some point, our country's laws are contradicting. It's progressive and idealistic in some areas, outmoded and ineffective in others. Either way, problems with implementation are paramount. The theory of
Laws extend
their
beyond.
practical reach. This poses the question of what the future holds for justice in the Philippines. Understanding the restorative justice in a broader range is a possible alternative system, placing the retributive justice at one end, polarized by the restorative justice at the other. Restorative justice aims to consider the position of all those affected by crime, the victim, the offender, their families, and the community. Firstly, it encourages the offenders to accept responsibility for what they have done. Secondly, it tries to repair the harm done to the victim. And finally, it tries to reduce future harm by preventing crime. On the other hand, compared to Japan, when Japan came out of centuries of isolation in the latter half of the 19th century, legal system reform is a matter of urgency. The Japanese criminal system still relies on its traditional punitive response to crime. The idea of restorative justice has been introduced as an alternative measure for dealing with crime and its effects. On December 2018, the world was shook by Japan's hostage-based system of pre-charge detention and interrogation, when they arrested Nissan's former chairman, Carlos Ghosn, for suspicion on falsifying financial reports. He was detained, interrogated without a lawyer for a month, and when the Tokyo court denied to detain him, Ghosn, for another 10 days, he was later on rearrested. Ghosn, who led a 2-decade turnaround at Nissan for near bankruptcy, Tokyo prosecutors Ghosn, a Brazilian-born Frenchman of Lebanese ancestry, a flight risk. However, there is no pressure for Japan's criminal justice system reform. As background, Japan's justice ministry is somewhat unclear. There is separation of powers between the government and the judiciary, and yet the Supreme Court and the Justice Ministry has close relation ties to the justices. No wonder Japan has 99% conviction rate. The courts are dubbed as sentencing factory. In spite the small number of judges and prosecutors, Japan is generally a safe place. A good proportion of those arrested and put into trials are probably guilty of something. Many trials consist of defendants throwing themselves at the mercy of court in a trial that is entirely about sentencing. Although it helps to think that the Supreme Court is another ministry, but on the contrary, it is not. It is not represented in the cabinet meetings. The Justice Ministry is an independent branch of the government. They say yes, but it is the contradictory of what is actually happening. However, the future of restorative justice system in Japan is getting brighter. In this regard, Japan is increasing its adoption to restorative justice principles and processes, and specifically to the growth of victim-offender mediation, family group conferencing, and other restorative justice practices.